Welcome to another edition of Jet Setting. Ken Weeb, Scott Billick, both with Winnipeg Sun. Kenny, just maybe let's quickly wrap up the 6-game series the Jets had with the St. Louis Blues. Western Conference first round. They come out losers of, in the game 6. They just couldn't seem to get it done when they needed to, whether it was in the third periods or just perhaps finding a killer instinct when they needed to or an extra goal.
Yeah, you know what? In Game 6, they definitely looked like a team that was out of gas, and for a team that wanted to go on a sustained run, that's not a good sign. I mean, obviously they fought to the end and made it a one-goal game, but at the end of the series, it's hard to say that the better team didn't win. I mean, the Blues were full value in the series. I think the Jets showed some flashes of life, and definitely had 2 games that they kind of didn't close out, and to me that's the difference in the series. Jordan Binnington was very good, but at the end of the day, the Jets didn't meet the expectations, the lofty expectations that A, they had for themselves, and B, media and people around the league had for them as well. So it'll be a long and somewhat painful off season. They'll be looking for some answers, and it'll be an interesting several weeks and months ahead, because there's a lot of big decisions on the horizon for the Jets.
Yeah, and we're here at Jets baggy day or locker cleanout day or whatever you want to call it. I mean, it happened a month earlier this year than it did last year. And those were some of the trends. You just talked about some of them. It just wasn't there for the Jets this year. What do you take away from this year? What was maybe one of the trends from this locker cleanout day that kind of permeated through the whole day here?
Yeah, the biggest difference that we've heard from both players, and then specifically from Paul Maurice, is that their defensive zone play was not up to par. I mean, Paul Maurice called it the dirty little secret about the Jets, and everyone knew they had the offensive talent and the ability, but what they did last year compared to this year was A, lock games down, and B, be very solid defensively. They were a top 10 team in terms of goals against. They had elite level goaltending, and then they still scored a lot. So for me, they weren't as good in that area. They weren't as committed, and that will be the biggest priority for the coaching staff going into the off season, is that, and again, if you read between the lines, Paul Maurice hinted at the end of his availability. I think he said the players are reminded how hard it is to win in this league, and I think it wasn't necessarily something the Jets tried any less. Obviously, they're still trying hard, but I don't think they were as committed defensively, and when meeting the other team's A games on a more regular basis, they just didn't quite measure up. Even during those times where they were piling up the points earlier in the year, a lot of players said they were still sort of searching for their best game, and it just never got there when they needed it.
That's part of obviously Coach Maurice's but his plan this summer. He's got to figure out ways to get the team together. But Kevin Cheroff is coming into another big summer, and he talked a little bit about last year. He maybe didn't have to make the surgery that maybe he thought he might have to then. This summer, though, it's certainly going to have to happen. There's a lot of contracts that need to be signed and deals to be figured out. What's the biggest one, I suppose, that stands out to you? Maybe is it Jacob Trouba, or is it Patrick Laine?
Yeah, for me, there needs to be resolution on the Jacob Trouba issue. I mean, it's something that has been a frequent topic of conversation, and I think the Jets will be looking for some clarity. Obviously, Kevin Cheveldayoff was not about to show his cards, and he made it abundantly clear they'll do what's best for the organization. Whether that means using Jacob Trouba as a self-rental, well, it's a possibility, because the Jets did it with 3 players this year, but for me, the most likely outcome is that if the Jets can't get a long-term extension done with Jacob Trouba by June 21st, he will be traded on the draft floor, not just for futures. Yes, the Jets would like to recoup some of the currency they lost in making some trade deadline deals, but they also need a player that can help them right now. The Jets' window to win is still open. They can't be just getting futures when it comes to any potential deal for Jacob Trouba. Obviously, Patrick Laine and Kyle Connor, 2 young goal scorers, they need new deals as well, and in order to fit everything under the cap, there might be some cap casualties like we saw with Joel Armia last summer. There's a few candidates in that camp as well, but 15 free agents is a lot of players to get taken care of. A lot of them won't be back, but there's some guys at that core that they need to find some contract values for, and that'll be the top priority for Kevin Cheveldayoff in the coming weeks and months.
We won't be back probably till at least the draft, maybe then, and then obviously free agent day on July 1st. So it's another edition of Jet Setting. Thanks for watching all season.